I want to talk to someone who has a deep knowledge of what happens behind the scenes to bring home detained Americans. Ambassador John Bolton was Donald Trump's national security advisor and joins me now. Ambassador, Trump did say repeatedly that he did not think Putin would release Evan Gershkovich to anyone else, that was going to happen if he won and when he took office again. What does it say tonight that he did?
Well, what Trump says is typically unprovable. It's always that he will do a better job, and that may or may not have proven out. I think we're all happy for the people released from Russian jails, but let's be clear, this was a bad deal. It sets a bad precedent. It violates a rule too often violated, that we don't swap for innocent American hostages. It's going to lay the groundwork for more Americans being used as bargaining chips. And it's happy for the individuals and their families, of course, but this is bad for the country.
You've long held that belief. I know that. I think it's important for people to know that. But, you know, when you hear from Trevor Reed earlier, or you're the person in the Oval Office making this decision, or these families who are waiting at Joint Base Andrews right now, you know, how do you make that argument to them who are just worried about getting their loved ones back home?
Well, it's very hard and close to impossible. I saw Jake Sullivan today saying that the conversations he had with hostage families were often very tough, and I would certainly agree with that. They were the toughest conversations I had when I served in that position. But the humanitarian logic here has to look forward as well as looking at the particular event we're discussing now. And looking forward, think the next time you see in a newspaper a paragraph that says that Russia has arrested some American for possession of a small amount of marijuana, or China, or some other authoritarian country, or someone's taken by a terrorist group. You know, you'll say that's too bad and move on. But that's where the real humanitarian concern should be, how to minimize, how to eventually end any incentive for these rogue states and terrorist groups to take Americans hostage. That's a hard logic, but it has a bigger humanitarian payoff. You
said this deal sets a bad precedent. Do you think the deals that Donald Trump made as well in prisoner exchanges when he was in office also set a bad precedent in your view?
Well, I know CNN has done a fact check on Trump. I looked at the article. 3 of the particular exchanges occurred after I left the White House. I really don't have any information whether, in fact, they were hostage for hostage swaps. The one that did occur when I was in the White House, you have factually wrong, as did the Washington Post when they reported it contemporaneously. Look, this principle of not dealing for hostages goes back to Richard Nixon. It's a long-standing rule. It's often violated, that's true, to our detriment every time we do it. Ask Ronald Reagan when he violated it in the Iran-Contra affair.
Yeah, I mean, we saw Trump do it with North Korea, with Iran, with the Taliban. You just heard Chris Murphy there talking about the Houthis. We just have seen it before, I think, as the counterpoint. But it is a real argument. I'm curious what you think of why Putin did this now, and what does it say to you, if anything, about how he's looking ahead to the U.S. election by striking this agreement now?
Well, I don't think it's necessarily connected to the election. I don't even think it's connected to the Democratic convention coming up in 3 weeks. I think Putin wanted Krasikov back. He wanted Viktor Bout back, and he got him. And he got a number of other Russian agents back, too. I think that's the factor that's most important to him. And if he thought he could do it with a good enough deal when it came up, he took it. You know, I've heard all this commentary about how these 7 Russian dissidents are being released. There's another way to look at that. They're being exiled. This was the practice of the czars. You want to get rid of your opponents, send them away from the country. They're maybe free in Western Europe, which is certainly being better than being in a Russian jail. They're exiled from their families. They're exiled from their friends. And by the way, their friends and families are now hostages of Putin's government. And they've been told by now, will be soon, your relative better behave or you'll pay for it. So I think Putin's gotten a spring cleaning of Russian jails. We don't know exactly the full value of the Russians being returned, but it's a totally unfair and really immoral swap of innocent Americans for Russian criminals.
Ambassador John Bolton, thank you for joining tonight.